Hey mate,
How are you, brother?
not too bad, not too bad. You know,
Oh, yeah.
first week in lockdown, making the most of it.
Laddie, what's changed for you working from home? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the orders was from midnight Thursday, or I guess like Friday morning. Um, Friday's work from home anyway, but
Yeah.
it's probably more just the weekend into Tuesday. But I think the last I heard, we've got a couple extra cases, so we'll see what happens over the next coming days. Mm.
There's a podcast actually, the All In podcast. It's with Chamat, a few other really, really smart guys and CEOs of companies, and they were speaking about the new strains of the vaccine and how many
Yeah,
strains there are already. And the two main ones is like A and like Delta.
yeah, I've heard
So
of the
there's two
Delta one.
main. You've heard of the Delta? So
That's a
Delta's one that's like pretty fucking bad, apparently.
yeah.
Um, but there's so many different strains, and I guess I feel like a lot of people don't know that. That
Mm.
even a random stat as well. I heard in the podcast is there's 1,800 different strains of the flu.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Like, I feel like people don't know that shit, and even the vaccine. I found like obviously I'm not. People call me doc, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a
Hey, we all think you're a doctor, mate.
so take this with a little bit of grain of salt because this is on some other people's knowledge, but they're pretty smart guys. They
Mm.
said that even the vaccine only has a 60% chance of working.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
even if you take the vaccine, you should take both vaccines, like both kind of um, like say Pfizer and AstraZeneca kind of thing. Take both of
Mm.
them, and then you have a higher chance of like not getting it, but you still have a 60% chance.
Yeah. See, like if it was hardcore head start making the vaccine, it'd be 100% success rate. Like we just wouldn't take any chances self-vaccinating.
Let me tell you right now. I don't think Hardcore Headstart has got a chance of making a vaccine, boys. Maybe Sama.
That's true.
Sama's a smart one.
It's
Sama's
out.
got the skills.
Even then, he's an engineer. He's not a doc. He's not in medical.
Yeah, he's not in medical, but I'm thinking he's the one who's probably got the brain capacity.
Yeah, he's studied a real science, unlike the rest of us. But
But
what were some like the aside from that key point that there's two variants? What were some of was there any sort of like takeaways that we haven't heard of before that you thought was interesting as well from the podcast?
definitely the strain one. Like, there's so many different strains. Like,
Mm.
I think the way they record strains is kind of like throughout the alphabet. So, you know, A B D C A B C D E F, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mm.
I can't remember what number they're up to, but what letter they're up to. But it's like a lot worse than people think. So all I know is the podcast is certainly making me that podcast, the All In podcast, the most recent episode from I didn't think now would it be 2 days ago. So go listen to
Mm.
it and don't just take my word because maybe I interpret
Yeah.
it differently to other people. But me personally, I'm thinking about getting the vaccine. It's made me think. It's made me
Mm.
think about getting it because I was always like, nah, there's some
Hesitant.
tracking chip in there or something. But well, it just being so new, I was very kind of wary
Yeah.
of getting it. But I think and I think that's a value of like really intelligent people or respected people with high reputations. Once they
Mm.
start communicating effectively and talking about these things transparently, it kind of gets a lot of people on side.
Mm.
Because in my opinion, that's where the government goes. Oh, excuse me. That's where the government goes wrong about it. They're just like, "Mate, just go get the vaccine. She's all right."
Yeah. I think, like in my opinion, so it's been 18 months since we've gone into lockdown, right? So a year and a half now, and I suppose I haven't really paid attention to the small details just because it just feels like it's just ongoing. But my sort of takeaway from it is follow the country that's doing the most vaccinations because that's what we're all sort of heading towards, right? Like get the vaccinations out, see if the vaccination works, and then sort of if it doesn't work, then back to the drawing board. And what country has the highest vaccinations? The UK, right? So at the moment, the UK. So we wait a couple months, see what happens to all the guys that have been vaccinated in the UK, and then we decide. Yeah, if you know, suddenly like they're coming out, babies are being born with three eyes, then we might think twice.
The thing, someone we were chatting about the podcast. Someone brought up a good point. Is like we don't know if the actual vaccine's the same as other countries though.
I see. Region
So
from region's going to be different again.
yeah, like how do we really know? You know, what dosages are correct? What kind of actual vaccine is the right one? You know, is it better to just get all of them and kind of like over a certain amount of time and kind of like boost your system? Yeah, I don't know the answers, but it made me think about it a hell of a lot more because I don't know about you, but I've been really, really lucky. You know, like all my work kind of transitioned to home when I was working a 9 to 5. But then obviously I've transitioned out of the 9 to 5, so it hasn't affected me as much.
Yeah.
So I think when it hasn't directly affected you, people have a kind of ability to like not think about it, not pay attention to what's going on. And you know, that's fair enough to a lot of people because they got enough things to worry about in their lives. But you know, yeah, I don't know. This podcast itself made me think.
Yeah, so I've been listening to the audio podcast, and I'm mostly through a few chapters left to Essentialism, and you know, I suppose applying it to this context, it's like, when does the vaccine become essential? When is it essential to pay attention to coronavirus? It's when there's suddenly like 300 cases in Victoria. You're like, okay, I probably should pay attention now and see what's happening. But you know, like the cases could be in the thousands overseas, and you're just kind of focusing on your bubble. If the cases aren't high in your area, you probably won't read into it that much. So I suppose it, like you said, like there's people who are directly affected, and they'll be very interested because it might mean they'll go into work, or they won't go into work the week after, or they need to sort of plan around for their kids, for example, like schooling. I know a lot of people who have kids, they think about coronavirus a lot more than maybe the counterparts, because they have to think about who's going to look after the kids if they stay at home and that sort of thing. Whereas for us, it's not even a consideration.
Yeah, and I think we're really, really lucky in that regard to be kind of young enough to have the lack of responsibility. We're going to look after us.
You don't have to be lucky, Doc. You can have kids now if you want to.
No. Nah, I'm good. I'm all right, boys. Not my thing. Definitely not yet. But yeah. So Essentialism, I've read that book a while ago, but you just finished it, or you got a few chapters left, you said?
I think I got through most of it, but yeah, I'm probably about 2/3 through chapter 16 or 17. I'm not too sure how many there is, but I think I'm close.
Oh, Ripper, what's your main takeaway? Or main takeaways? It's hard, I know, regurgitating. It's not how my brain works either, so I apologize about even asking the question. But
there's a ton, but I suppose like because I've read it, maybe listened to it more recently, there's a few things that definitely front of mind, but I've been sort of taking notes, and you know, there's no way I'll cover all the gold nuggets in there. But it's a nice reminder of the Pareto principle around how 80% of your outputs are generally caused by 20% of your actions. And it talks about this idea of really looking at your activities and starting with the goal, right? If your goal is to have something published by a certain date, then, you know, that's a time sensitive thing. So you have to think if all your actions are working towards that. And then I think the other things was, I don't know if you remember the part, but it says if you're doing activities, right, you should rank or rate your score from 1 to 10. And if it's not a 9 or a 10, then you should not do it, because you're paving way for the things that are 9 or 10 or essential. So that stood out for me. So I think with a lot of social pressures and that sort of thing, you tend to get into accepting things that are like often you don't mind doing, but you probably should be doing something else. Um, so that stood out. And then I think there was one other thing, which was what was it? That's right. So just making things like 20%, the 20-second rule. So like obviously it'll vary, but the general rule was make the things that you want to do more 20 seconds easier. So like wearing your gym clothes the night before,
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
getting your audio book within like 20 seconds, like a few steps away from you, or like installed on your app on the front screen rather than going through 4 folders.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing I think was pretty powerful.
Mm.
How about you? What stands out for you from the principles
Yeah.
around essentialism?
It's been a little minute. I have a habit of reading stuff and then incorporating it and applying it in one's life and then forgetting where the information came from. So
Yeah.
regurgitating is hard, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I am sure. One of the things from essentialism that was really kind of impactful for me was like try and find that one dump domino that provides the most ROI.
Yeah.
And that one domino, you solve that one domino and it solves and kind of as a domino does, ticks over the rest of the problems. So you solve that one problem that solves the rest of your problems and it frees up a lot of time. And a lot of essentialism for me, and getting back to what you were saying before about kind of we do so many things,
Mm.
is when you apply, the Pareto principle, or when you apply a few of the other principles in essentialism, it allows you to say no to the least important things. So that rating system of 9 to 10 is, in my kind of interpretation of the book, is allowing you to save more time to do more of those more important things.
Mm. Yeah.
So
You nailed it.
but yeah, well, that was a bit messy, but by rating things, you're always doing the most important thing, which means you get the best ROI.
Mm. Well, I think it was really powerful what you said around, one big decision can eliminate a lot of, decisions or decisions that would normally have your consideration. So if you decide you're going to university, if you're choosing whether you're going to university or not, choosing not to go to university removes all the decisions based around what courses, how much time, do you work full time or part time, and everything else that goes hand in hand with that. So if you know for yourself, hey, I've got something that I want to build, or your business or your investing or whatever it is, and that means that you're not going to have your foot in university as well. It removes
Mm.
all those decisions around that. So, and that's just one example.
Yeah, I think with the way the world works these days, the amount of social pressure just from and any other kind of pressure with bills and everything, it makes it hard for people to say no.
Mm.
So everyone is always trying to do so many things. And there's an
Yeah.
example in the book, I'm pretty sure it's from this book. It's where he's a relatively high executive. It's like one of the first examples in the book. He's a relatively high executive, and his wife is at the moment having a baby, like she's in labor,
Yeah.
right? And either the day of the baby or the day after she's had the baby, there's a important meeting to go to.
Yeah.
Right now, into in
Sure.
obviously,
Yeah.
intuitively, God
Yeah.
damn, I just literally gave up on that word. Intuitively, the answer to go to that important meeting is no, because you've just had a child or you're having a child. But due to the social pressures of bills and not wanting to let down your co-workers, et cetera, the example is this guy says yes, goes to that meeting. Inevitably, the meeting doesn't eventuate out into anything because, the client ends up actually losing respect because you don't have your priorities in check, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes the best answer is actually to say no. And I think saying no, that's one example of saying no. And I think it applies in other areas as well. If you say no to the least important things, or just, if you already have too much on your plate, you can apply better value to those things that you're already doing.
Yeah.
And you can do those things to a higher standard.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
Tell me, let's unpack that a bit more. Like, tell me what kind of experience or like situation comes to mind when you think of where it was a little bit challenging for you to say no, or like where you had to consciously make that decision to say no to whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember personally being like when it was younger of kind of trying to do everything. So
Yeah.
the first thing you do on this journey is realize that unfortunately you don't have enough time to go and hang out with your friends and then study everything that you need to spend copious amounts of hours working to get money. But you inevitably start trying to do that.
Yeah.
So you're trying to have a social life. You try to have that kind of work-life balance. You try to work 100 hours and then study at night and then go out and see your friends. But unfortunately, inevitably, you realize that there's no longevity in that and it's not possible. So something has to give eventually. And if people go in with that mindset of you kind of unfortunately can't have everything at once, you can't have, both worlds, and you do need to sacrifice, then I think the decision made previous to doing all that unnecessary work makes it a lot easier in the long run.
Yeah, I reckon it's really hard. So like social pressures and like if you don't have a clear sense of how you want to spend your time, other people's idea of how you should spend your time becomes more attractive. And this idea of like going to this party and going to that party and going out for drinks or going out for dinner becomes like really difficult. And you have those friends that are, they're really, because they're really passionate about it, right? And they're not really doing anything wrong. They're generally passionate about it, so they're trying to persuade you to come along and do, what's fun for them or what's important to them at the time. So they're not doing anything wrong. It's just you don't have your own compass, so you kind of get pulled into somebody else's gravitational pull, I feel. And I struggled a lot with that, and I realized it was more because I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to spend my time in the earlier years. And I got better with it because when it slowly transitioned from actually I know what I want to do, but I'm trying to please somebody else, that's when there was the internal conflict. And I realized something's got to change. And that's when I started getting better at saying no, I think.
Yeah. Is there a specific
it's an art form? Yeah, definitely. So like I'd say just going out for like, being frugal, right? So, intentionally wanting to go out only, twice a month rather than 3 times a week, eating out, for example, because that, as you know, eating out can sort of eat into your budget and, consequently mean that, you've got less money to save and invest and all that sort of thing. So, what point, you sort of have this conflict of how am I going to reach my goals and how am I going to try to save X amount of money and invest X amount of money if you're doing the actions, you're going out to eat, you're spending money on alcohol, you're going out clubbing, and you start looking at numbers more closely because you're tracking those numbers. So you have that internal conflict. So for me, it was definitely, for example, going out as a 18, 19-year-old and knowing that each night out was going to cost $100, $150 on the cheap end, once you factor in taxis, drinks, food, late night food after, you're waiting for your taxi and so on. So I think that was really difficult for me. I just kind of went with the flow for a couple of years. It wasn't until, 2 years of that, getting that out of my system, I started getting better at saying no, I think.
Yeah, that going with the flow thing is like, it seems such a harmless decision, but it's very dangerous. Like if you don't make, I think a quote from the book is if you don't make your choices, someone else will. If you don't make your own choices, someone else will make them for you. Something very
Yeah.
similar to that. And like unpacking that is if you don't make the conscious decision to not go out because you want to save money, you'll be very easily swayed by your friends to just go with the flow and go out with them.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do your, it's kind of like that old thing, where do your priorities lie?
Yeah.
That Old Testament, that old thing. It's like, if you've got a goal, if your priorities don't lie in becoming financially free, for example, then you have
Yeah.
no room, time, money to spend on, going out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you just like what you said just reminded me of uh like an example that was mentioned in the book. So it talks about this Australian nurse who looks after people. So her job is to look after people in their last 12 weeks of their life. So they're at the end, they're pretty much at the end of their life. And
So
it's just
they're in palliative care, yeah.
yeah, so they're in palliative care, and the nurse's job is to just make sure they've got a high quality of life in those 12 weeks, as before they die. And one of the questions or one of the interviews like she did with each of those patients was trying to understand, any of their regrets and anything they would have done differently. And top of the list was always living a life true and honest to themselves rather than what was expected of them from other people.
Mhm.
So I think this is a drawn out version of what we're talking about now, right? So like you've got the following your friends and giving into peer pressure of going out or drinking or whatever in small doses, but this might be living to your parents' expectations of you going to school, or living a certain life, or only being able to date or marry a certain religion, and so on, right? So I think that's the more extreme version of it.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's pretty deep. That's really
Mm.
deep. I think people are always afraid of doing what it is that they enjoy because they feel ostracized from where they are at that moment.
Yeah.
So if you're in a community where whatever you enjoy doing is different to what the majority feels, you're going to feel, you know, alienated and every other emotion under the sky. But it's important for people to, I believe, that there are people out there like you. You just have to find them.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So something similar, like speaking about friends, community, something probably we've touched on in the last podcast, but we're going to continue to touch on is, we as Hardcore Headstart and us boys together, we've joined in similar passions that make us happy, but we share them with each other. And it's our own little niche group, right?
Yeah.
Now, for example, if someone doesn't like investing, doesn't like the way we, you know, progress through life, literally doesn't subscribe to the way we live life, right? Let's just say that kind
Mm.
of person. And they're in our group, say right now, or they're in our, eventually they come into our group, then, you're not living your true life. You're not living your true way. So you have to do what is right for you at all times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there is always going to be people out there that subscribe to the way that you want to do life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I think I suppose we've got like Chrissy G. Shout out to Chrissy G in
he's going to
the
love this. He's going to love this. Chris.
Chrissy G in the household. I think he's literally at that age where we felt it was most difficult to say no to like social events and just social gatherings and that sort of thing, or maybe not social events per se, but more social events that were maybe not intentional. So it was more just about alcohol drinking and just, like talking shit and that sort of stuff, which is fine. But having more sort of deeper conversations with people with, similarly aligned goals and ambitions feels like a more better use of time. And I think if you have people who have the similar goals, similar ambitions, you don't feel like you're missing out because you're you're constantly surrounded by that. I think it's more difficult when you don't want to do those things, but then you're also not sure how to spend your time, aside from YouTube and reading books, and you're like, what am I doing? Is this the right path or is this the wrong path?
Yeah. No, that's a credit to, that's something we all go through at, different ages. It usually does end up to be around, that age now of like 22, 23, where you're kind of trying to start working out what it is that you want. But, that's fucking credit to Chrissy G. He's transcended that now, and his ability to have deep conversations and kind of really give his perspective on, how he dealt with that's awesome. And I'm sure that'll come out in, more future hardcore podcasts. Because that's one thing, like what we're doing at hardcore is giving, everyone has a different perspective along similar kind of passions, investing, financial freedom, giving back, helping, progressing, et cetera, et cetera. But everyone still has a different perspective, and everyone's perspective is allowed to shine. There's going to be people out there who subscribe to, each individual inside of hardcore's kind of experience, or they're going to be able to relate to that person's experience more. And it's, it feels good that, we're trying to solve that massive barrier of community.
Yeah. Well, look, I think just building on that, we've gotten to a point now where we've got quite a few like-minded people, in the Hardcore Headstart and like within our group. But in the beginning, it's normal to have fewer, sort of friendships and relationships that are in line with where you want to go than they are, sort of just, just platonic sort of like relationships. And I think it's about nurturing the relationships that do matter. So let's say you've got 20 friends that you spend time with. Maybe there's only one friend that really shares your goal around trying to build a business or trying to get ahead or invest for the future. So you nurture, you water that friendship, and you spend more time on that friendship, because that creates a bond, and that creates someone who you can depend on when things get difficult. You keep each other accountable, that sort of thing. I actually watched a movie last night. So I don't know if you know the story behind. So there's a movie called what's the movie called? It's over my. I've gone blank on it. But basically, there's a dog, right? The Shiba Inu or Shiba.
Yeah.
So there's do you know there's a statue of a Shiba at Shibuya Crossing, like near the train station? Didn't I?
No.
Yes. So there's a statue there, and I went past this statue, but I didn't realize there was like a significance or like a story behind it.
Right.
There's
This is in Japan, yeah?
Yeah, this is in Japan, Tokyo, Shibuya Station. There's a little sort of like courtyard, and then there's a statue of a Shiba, which I've later found out that it's actually an Akita, which is a Shiba, but like a bigger version of the same dog.
Yep.
Anyway, so I watched a movie last night, which tells it's a Western version of this story. So originally the story is in Japan, but they've remade it like a Western version in the US, down in Rhode Island, right? Like this kind of small town. Anyway, I'll set the scene. So there's a train station. You see all these, people hop off the train, it gets busy, and you see this kind of like trolley carting like a pet dog, a cage with a dog in it, and the cage falls off the trolley, and the dog is kind of like scrambling and like it can't find its owner, and this figure turns up, picks up the dog, and it happens to be this professor, so a professor in music. And he picks up the dog, takes him home. The wife is like, there's no way we're keeping that dog. You need to return it back to its owner. So he's having this internal struggle of, he wants to look after the dog, make sure the original owners find it, or to kind of, the alternative is it ends up at a pound, right? So the short version of it is he nurtures this dog. He looks after the dog, and he falls in love with this dog, becomes his closest companion, and he starts going to work, and this dog like follows him to the train station and like wants to hop onto the train. And this goes on and on for like 6 months. Like the dog walks him to the train station. And then one day the professor during like a seminar has a heart attack and he dies, right? And this dog continues to go to the same spot for the next 10 years and just keeps waiting for its owner. And all the people like in the town are like feeding it and looking after it. But this dog keeps coming to the same spot. And the owner's obviously passed away, and like the dog just sits there at the same time, like and it shows you it going through like the different seasons, like the warm season, autumn, spring, and it just continuously every single day for 10 years. And then the dog, gets old and frail. And then the grieving the grieving partner of the professor comes back 10 years later, sees the dog, and he's like still there. Bit of a sad story, but it just shows like this kind of like unbreakable bond in a relationship where you invest in those relationships, and you've got that sort of that bond. So yeah, really interesting, dude.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. You have to find what that movie's called for the people.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah, I think this is gonna seem weird, but I feel like I've seen a maybe like American version of that movie.
Yeah,
I'm sure they've just ripped it straight off that.
Yeah,
because
I think it's called Hachi. Hachi. Yeah, that's
Hachi.
right. Hachi.
Dude, yeah, I think I've seen that.
Have you seen it? Yeah, 2009 is when it came out.
I don't know. I know the story though. As you're explaining it, I know it, and I don't know if it's from that movie or if it's something similar. But yeah, no, that unbreakable bond of kind of really building. I really like that analogy of like if you've got 20 friends and one is similar to you in personality and passion and drive, really invest in that one, because a lot of the times, the people who are unfortunately, not interested in the same thing as you, it's kind of just it's always how it's been. We're kind of just friends. We're kind of like, we always hang around the same gatherings, but without being sappy and soppy and all that kind of thing. Like, doesn't mean true love, but like, or best friends and stuff like that. Like, it's an entirely different feeling than just hanging around the same social group. Like the boys we got in the house at the moment and the boys that we've put together, like the last 8 boys, like, well, I've only known you for how long? Like, I can't remember, like what, start of the year? Or
7 months, 8 months, something like that now.
7 months. And I'd consider you like one of my closest best friends. And it's completely different to one of the like relationships that you don't manage a lot.
Yeah.
We talk many times a week, like not just for this podcast, we talk anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's
about things we're most interested in.
Well, that's right. Because I suppose between yourself and I and the other boys in the house, we share a similar vision of building something in the future. Whereas I suppose you've got a lot of other friendships, relationships where you don't particularly see a vision. It's more just, what you're experiencing in front of you. So you don't have like a picture or an idea of where that friendship is going or what you're building or what that future looks like with that friend. So that
I saw. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say that's a much weaker bond than having something with another friend where you share a similar sort of ambition, goal, vision. Yeah
absolutely. I saw I don't know if this is like a meme, but I see it on Instagram or something all the time. It's like that stupid relationship channels and shit where they're like or best friend channels. It's something silly, but I reckon it has some truth to it. It's like if you think like someone's your best friend or some shit like that, stop messaging them and see if they message you back.
Yeah.
So it's like if you didn't message someone, how long would it take, or would they ever actually message you back? It's kind of like, how interested are they in the relationship as much as you are? So if you're the one putting all the effort in, the time and the time in all the time, are you the one just keeping that relationship alive when there's no real point to it because both people are not interested in it?
Yeah, That's yeah, I think that's an interesting take. And it will definitely give you a sense of, you know, how, like, where those relationships stand. There's also, I suppose, relationships where maybe you don't hear from someone for a long time, but they're, you know, that's just life getting busy, and you still be very
Mm,
close. But then there's other people who, you know that it's more one-sided, like you said. And I think everyone can relate to this situation where, for one reason or another, you and another friend sort of part ways, or you sort of grow apart, and you look back and you think, you know, you can't quite understand why the friendship sort of grew apart, and you look back and you try to make excuses for the other person, and or whatever it is. But quite simply, it's just, you know, one person viewed the friendship as more important than the other person. And if you're the one who's lingering and thinking about that friendship and why it didn't work out, chances are, you know, quite simply, you are more invested in that friendship than they were,
mm,
because they're probably not thinking about their friendship as much as you are. Otherwise, you know, you'd make that effort and it wouldn't fizzle, I suppose.
mm.
Yeah.
I think it's like really highlighted in the amount of friends that stay together after school.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, there's not a lot. Well, me personally, maybe I'm a interesting example because I've kind of very early in life, kind of took on that kind of progression mindset and value
Mm.
mindset. But even even still, I think there's a lot of relationships where school was, and that kind of social lack of maturity environment was the only thing keeping the relationship and the friendship together.
Mm.
And when things get real and, doing bigger things is on the mind of one person, those relationships fizzle out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting the kind of situations that, like, I know a lot of people. I was involved in like local sport and all that kind of thing, and I got friends from there. I got friends from school, but I don't communicate with like any of them. Not out of like I don't enjoy them, but those are the specific environments from where those relationships were kind of cultivated, and that's
Mm.
where they just stay. There's nothing more than from
Well,
that, if that makes sense.
well, that's right. Like, let's say you go through a phase where you're doing heaps of martial arts or sports, you know, footy, soccer, and you get to a competitive level. You build those friendships, those bonds, and the glue is activity of soccer or sports, right? If you then transition and your focus comes around building character, self development, you know, uh, uh, building out investments, and sort of looking into ways to, you know, create a business, or whatever it is. If you're fixated and you're passionate about that, you're always going to be talking about that. And given, you know, two or three options, you're always going to choose the one that's going to help you get closer to your goal. And if someone else's goal or vision isn't the same as you, they're not going to find that interesting. So, you know, you'll be talking about something and they're not that interested in it. And the only thing that brings you guys back is talking about the sports, but slowly you stop caring about the sports as much, and they might still be stuck on the
Mm,
soccer or the activity. And it's not right or wrong. It's a misalignment of where your priorities are as
mm.
you sort of grow, I suppose, or get older. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of still comes back to that whole like community and group and passion kind of thing. Like, if my passion was football solely, like I loved football, like all I
Yeah.
wanted to do was play football, talk football, be football, you know, then I would kind of align myself with people who are similar.
Yeah.
But at the moment, as far as I can tell, all my passions rely in business, rely in personal growth, self development, investing, finance, helping other people, et cetera, et
Mm.
cetera. Um, you know, and the people around me at the moment, they have very similar passions, very well, near on say
Mm.
exactly the same passions. So it, it kind of, it does make sense. And
Mm.
if you're being true to yourself, and if you're in a community where your true passions and you have a community around you and you have a niche group of people around you, then, count yourself lucky, because there's a lot of people in the world who do not.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the world who aren't open enough with themselves to be able to say what they really want. Not enough people have done the thinking to tell what it is they really want. So if you think at the moment you really know what you want, and you have a group around you of people that want similar things to you, count yourself lucky. And if you listen to this and you don't know what you want, try and work it out. It should be your main thing in life. Work out what the hell you want. Surround yourself with people who want similar things.
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, building on that, at the start, if you are used to a certain way and you want to grow and change the person you are, you're going to you're most likely going to run into struggles and challenges, right? So trying to establish a whole new support network of people that you can rely on and depend on when you're having like difficult days. Because if you're obsessed with building a business, you're going to run into roadblocks every single day. If you build that network when you're having those tough days, you're going to be able to bounce back much better if you nurture and you focus on those relationships, because you can't depend on or less so, your family and your friends from football, your past, sort of shared hobbies and other areas of your life to provide you the support you need to grow your business, because they don't understand or have the experience or interest in business, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think, yeah, in when it comes to what you want, self-fulfillment, it's probably the area where you need to be the most selfish.
Yeah.
Find out what it is you want. And it's not easy to do. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of experiment, it takes a lot of pain, but yeah, she's worth it. As far as I can tell so far, it seems to be worth it. I'm not saying I'm done. I'm saying I'm on the path. And as far as I can tell, I feel, Samir said something in a podcast the other day where he goes, this just feels right, what we're doing at Hardcore Headstart and being together. And I literally couldn't agree anymore.
Yeah.
And it really resonated. I was like, yeah, everything we do feels like the right thing. And I guess that's kind of, a metric for yourself to like look inside and be like, if something isn't feeling right, then you need to not shy away from it. You need to go deeper into it and understand what it is, why it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It's not enough time. You don't have enough time in the world to do things you don't enjoy doing. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Samir definitely has. He's very self-aware, and I think he's really in touch with his emotional side. So he knows when, with the emotional intelligence, he knows when things are morally aligned, personally aligned, and he's heading down the right path in all the development and growth that comes with that. We're just lucky we've gotten to a point now where we probably know more friends or spend more time with friends that share the same goal than friends that don't. But it's not always going to be like that from the beginning. In fact, there's a lot of people that we come across that are very interested in self-development and really interested in, investments or finances or, building a business. And those people often express feelings of loneliness, feelings of not belonging, not having, someone who they can talk to about their interest about. And I think that's a feeling that like I experienced quite a bit early on. And, I remind myself that people feel the same. So whenever you come across those people, you try to water and like help them understand that, it's just part of growing, part of that experience, I think.
yeah. Yeah, I was very lucky in that regard. When I kind of started this journey and realized I enjoyed it, I had a community there, that was built by people similar to yourself, because they were lonely on that journey. What do they say? The road to the top is lonely, or being at the top is lonely. It's very, very true, because it's kind of the ostracized, or it's the hardest thing to do. It's the niched of everything. Like the majority are not doing what we do for a reason. So to be able to find people like us, or to kind of artificially created a community like us because it's necessary.
Mm.
We're really filling a hole that I think a lot of people need, especially young business people, young entrepreneurs, young investors. I mean, the list kind of goes on. Young self-development people who want to better themselves. So we should probably preface like why we keep talking about Hardcore Headstart and where these other podcasts are.
Yeah.
I think so if you go to one of our Instagrams, you'll be able to find it somewhere. Or if you just go to YouTube, you can go to Hardcore Headstart clips. Or on Spotify, you can go to Inside Hardcore Headstart. It tells you what Hardcore Headstart is. It's got the most recent brand identity episodes of us building the company. It's also got on the YouTube channel Hardcore Headstart clips. It's got some of our kind of best sound bites so far. There's not a heap of content out there yet. It's something we're really working on building at the moment, but that will probably provide some more context of why we keep talking about Hardcore Headstart and where a lot of our ideas kind of come from, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, I think if you're not already following those pages, definitely give them a follow. It covers and summarizes a lot of what we say in somewhat more digestible formats. These podcasts are long, and not everyone listens all the way through. So if you find those channels more easier to digest, certainly recommend giving those channels a follow.
Yeah, no, it's something we're working on building. Something we've been kind of all the last, say, 6, depending on your age, I guess, and depending on the journey, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like a cultivation, a compilation of all of our years of learning that we are created a mindset and a lifestyle from, that we are trying to not necessarily teach, but definitely teach the people of how we do life. And if that's something you think you will help you, then let's hope it does.
Yeah, for sure. And whether you're 17 and starting the journey of investing, and the journey of self-awareness and figuring out where you want to spend your time and how you want to spend your life, or if you're in your 40s and you're looking to make a bit of a change, or take your finances, or you're investing more seriously, we think our content, although quite specific and in-depth at times, we do have broader information and like topics that we discuss that we hope is of value to people, no matter what age you are.
I think I actually just made a misstep where I was like, oh, not necessarily trying to teach. I think that's actually incorrect.
Yeah,
I believe we are actually trying to teach, and I believe we have the right and the authority to, based on our experience, especially in the investing world, and definitely in the self-development world. From where we first came, we've done a lot of work to get to where we are, and it comes from a place of wanting to help. So yeah, I actually just wanted to clear that up. We are definitely trying to teach our kind of lifestyle and the way we live, because we think it can definitely help and provide value to a lot of people.
Yeah, certainly. It's been a lot of fun, mate. This was a good podcast, and I think we covered some really interesting topics there. And I think each week we're sort of getting better, covering topics in more detail, and then also sharing little bits of pieces of where Hardcore Headstart is heading.
That's good. I didn't even say the title. Nice, love it. Yeah, it's getting I think we're getting better, and I think the people are enjoying it. We're getting really good feedback all the time, as far as I can tell. So happy to keep doing this while I'm enjoying it, while we've got something to say, and keep hydrating myself while we're doing it. You have no idea. You have no idea how much that hurt.
That brings back memories, mate.
Memories. Oh, we should tell that story. Far out. We should end on that note of like a crazy story. So this thing here, how much does it weigh, you reckon? It's 10 liters.
10 liters,
It
10,
weighs
10 kilos.
10.4. Yeah, 10.4 kilos. We
Mm.
used to all, who was it? It was probably the 5 of us. So Marky, myself, Samir, Chrissy G, and Dylan. We all used to run. I think our best we did was, I don't actually know the number. How many kilometers was it? 7?
Somewhere between like 7 and 10, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere in between there. We ran all passing that 10 kilo, 10 liter jug of water, whatever the hell you call it.
You missed out on Johnny, like the one that did most of the lifting.
Oh, yeah, true. I can't forget Johnny Boy. Sorry, Johnny.
Johnny. Big shout out to Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy's an assassin. He's huge. So, yeah, we used to run just looking like psychopaths running 7 kilometers with that weight of a water bottle. Anyway, I think it's a funny story. I think
water relay. Water relay,
yeah. I think it says a lot about our character. We're pretty intense and crazy.